Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Catholic Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Fisher. Today, we have guest Juan Damia with us. Juan is a tech entrepreneur. He's actually the founder and CEO of the Havas Group. He's an investor and an author. So I'm really excited to dive in with Juan. Before we do, question of the week. What's your favorite social media platform right now and why? Tweet me, Instagram, DM me, post it. I want to hear what you all think. Without further ado, let's bring on Juan Damia here. Juan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you, Mitch?
Good. Thanks for taking the time to join us. Why don't you just go ahead and start by introducing yourself?
Right. Well, I'm Juan Damia. I born in Argentina in the city called La Plata, which is the capital city of Buenos Aires. I met my wife when I was 13 years old. No, I was 15. She was 12. We're not dating or nothing. It's just like she was living nearby my house. And I have 7 kids from 18 to 1 years old.
Very cool.
So I'm in the middle of, in the moment that I can be a grandpa or a father, right?
Right.
And I remember I started like programming when I was like 7 years old, something like that. When my brother brought a computer, it was like very, early stage computer called Microsystem K83, and it was basically like spending one day coding, one day debugging, and as a result you had a car, something that looks like supposed to look like a car, right? So that's how I started with the computers. Then I, as an entrepreneur, my first experience is like when I was like 10 years old. I started like I painted my bicycle in silver. Chrome BMX in Argentina was very expensive. It was not a possibility. So it was like a kind of like a silver paint, as shiny as it was possible. And I put a lot of stars. And then I went to the neighborhood and other kids, start asking about the bicycle and start like painting bicycles for them, which was a horrible business. It was a lot of time for nothing almost. And yeah, that's how everything started. And so yeah, I wrote 2 books. A book called Meta Analytics that was published by University of Palermo, and another book called Mejor Marketing, which is like better marketing, from AMDIA, which is the marketing association from Argentina. I'm also an ever entrepreneur, and well, I think we can talk about me later on the interview. How about that?
Definitely. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Appreciate the introduction, and sounds like you're very busy. Have your hands in a lot of different areas. What was the early days like? So take me back to when you first started like coding and wanting to build stuff like that. Like, what was that like? Like, why did you gravitate towards that, and how did that eventually develop into all these talents and skills that would allow you to then start a business?
Well, when I started coding, I was like very young, and I remember my uncle was living here in the U.S. in New York, and he was telling stories like you can move a satellite with a computer, and my brother and I were like, "Wow, you can move a satellite!" I didn't even know what was a satellite, but it sounded cool, right?
Yeah.
So we started like using the computer. Of course, my computer was unable to do any like that, right? Um, and I'm dyslexic, so kind of have a some when I was a kid mostly. Then I had to develop some communication skills. When I was a kid, I was normally playing by myself, and so coding was a good way to spend my time. I feel like more secure with that. It was logic, very easy, right?
Definitely. Yeah. So tell me about like the companies that you've founded or are invested in. Like, what all do they do? What all industries and products, services that you provide?
Yeah, so I started working around data in 1998. That was my thing. I felt normally more comfortable with data, math, and statistics because of this dyslexia, and I felt more secure there. And when I started connecting all those models that I studied in college, about statistics and everything with something that I love, like computers, I realized I love this. This is my thing. And I remember that was, as I told you, 1998, and most of my, other students from college were asking me, "What are you gonna do, right, after college?" And when I told them about this thing of the internet and measuring things in the internet, they were like, about how are you gonna feed your family, right? Because at that time, nobody was making money in the internet, in Argentina at least, right? Um, so I started my first company when I was in college. Um, and as I told you, it was in a small city. In Argentina, it's a city, uh, is comparable with the profile of Austin, but not without the tech, before the tech, right? It's mostly public employees, people that work for the government, and students, because there are a lot of universities there. And so I developed all these services that were for corporations, basically, because nobody had the money to pay for that. And I started offering that in my city. So basically, it was I get some money for like a year, 2 years, something like that, but it failed basically because nobody was able to pay for the services. And I realized that you know, things were not going well. And at that time, I say, I need more experience. I need like corporate experience. I need people that knows what they're doing and know why I'm failing. So I started working in Buenos Aires City, which is like, it was like a 1 hours and a half, 2 hours from my house. So I was doing that commute every day, and I started working in this company and then another company. And when I realized it was totally my mistake. So the product I developed was correct, but the market was incorrect. So basically, I started working for clients in the U.S. And when I showed them the services, they loved them, and they were paying. This is like 2000 and probably 5, something like that, 4, and they were paying like $300 per hour, right? And that was, in Argentina at that point, it was like after one of the biggest crises in the country. That was probably a monthly salary for a person. In a moment that 50% of the country was an employee, right?
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, tell me about, so when did you, so you started working for clients in the US and then eventually moved to the US, correct?
Yes.
And when did that happen, and how and why, and what was that process like?
Yeah, it was later on. To be honest, I was coming here all the time to visit my uncle, and I love the country, but of course I never thought that it was possible to get a green card or whatever. So it was never in my mind to do that. But I opened an office here. So basically, in 2011, in Argentina, they canceled the possibility to pay abroad, to pay in dollars. So basically, I have vendors like Google or in other, American companies. They were selling services to me, and I was reselling those services to companies in Latin America. So basically, they were paying me. My clients were paying me in pesos. I was putting the money in the bank, and at some point, the government canceled that option. So I
Mm,
was increasing pesos with inflation of like 100% per year, and I was accumulating debt with companies in the U.S. right, in dollars. So basically, the money that my client gave me, let's say it was $100,000, the next year was $50,000. And the next year it was $25,000. So basically, my debt was started increasing, and I realized it was impossible to operate that way. So I opened in 2012 an office in Miami, and I basically moved an employee from my company in Argentina to US, and that's how we started. So when I came to work in his visa, right, the immigration lawyer told me, because of your profile, you can get an O1 visa, which is a outstanding abilities visa, and that will drive you straight to citizenship. And it was weird, but to you know, actually like 3 months later, I was in the US
Wow.
with my
Very cool.
family.
Yeah. Very good. So when does your kind of conversion to Catholicism come into play? I know you mentioned that you and your wife, like, when did that start? What was that process like in the midst of, running your company and doing all that you do?
That was a little bit. We started a little bit before starting my first company. That was around. I was around 20 years old. My wife like 17, and we started dating. And at that time, I started studying in the university, a Catholic university in La Plata, my city. I was not Catholic. I was. My mother was Catholic, but I never like we never talk about God or whatever at home. It was nothing. We never went to church or talk about the possibility. I went to a Catholic school. It was a um, Marian school, I think it was called, and I learned how to hate the Catholic Church there because it was the opposite values of of Catholicism, right?
Mhm.
Now I know. And so when I finished high school, I started in college in a Catholic university because they were basically the only private schools there were. And public schools in Argentina are like more political. It's like um, probably you can be in college for 10 years because, you know, there are a lot of days they don't have classes because they go to March and things like that. And I wanted to just study and finish as soon as possible. And I went to the Catholic University and I love science and everything. And at some point I realized started struggling with the idea of creating matter, right? And you cannot create matter out of nothing. There are four forces that modify matter: atomic, strong, weak, electromagnetic, and gravitatory. But they modify the matter. So how the matter can be created? And the answer is by something that is not matter. And so I was in a Catholic university, started talking with a philosophy professor, and that's how everything started, to be honest.
Yeah. Wow. Very cool. I love that. That's such a unique, like, conversion story. I feel like to have it be like so scientific and kind of bring you to that. So that's really cool. What do you do now? Like, what's your day-to-day look like between your family and your company?
Yeah, so after that I founded two other companies, so Intellignos and Social Metrics was a company we developed a natural processing algorithm to identify human language, so computers can understand computer language. And it was a social media platform. So we were capturing data, text, and then classify the text as a negative, positive, and neutral. That company was invested by the Daily Mail. Then I sold my stocks to my other partners and the Daily Mail, and left the company to focus on Intellignos. Intellignos, we develop know-how around algorithms and data around marketing mainly. And that company was acquired by Havas Group, which is one of the biggest advertising agencies. That was in November 2016. And at that point, I thought, after the 3 years of earnout, I'm leaving, building something else. But to be honest, something that I was not expected to happen, and the company is really entrepreneurial, and I stayed there as a CEO. So basically, my day by day is like 100% or almost all the time oriented in terms of work. To the company was they sold Intellignos. Now it's called CSA, and as a CEO, and then I invested in other companies. The most interesting one that is more advanced is Live Panel, which basically developed. They had like 200,000 a panel to interview of like 200,000 people, and at some point they started developing clusters of people, so or user personas, so they can ask questions to an algorithm and see what person that is a real person would answer to the new question. So basically, they
Hmm.
have a lot of AI to work with surveys, and they do mostly mobile, and that's like you can get answers in like 2 hours. So that's in a world that is moving quite fast, surveys normally takes like a month. This is fantastic. So I love that company. Then I have another company that I founded. And I actually am the main investor. I'm not in the daily, daily day by day work. In that case, I have a team working there. I'm financing the company, put the vision, and I, work mostly in defining the product. It is software as a service for entrepreneurs and venture capitalists to basically automate like 80% of their activities. So everything, reducing their time because it's people that is very busy. So we need to concentrate. We have a lot of automation that is possible today. It doesn't make sense to have the people like sending emails to connect with the venture capitalists and then going back and forth, uploading the same presentation 10 times. That doesn't make sense. So what I did this, and basically they connect together in like a marketplace. So if you have a startup, you can go to the platform, log in, and get your profile. We have like 90 questions that we ask you. It's for the first time. If you have the data, it's like only an hour, and then you will receive mentorship as a service. So our mentor Warren, which is our AI mentor, will tell you everything you need to improve from your company, and you can start working on that. And then you can connect with the investor that has your profile, and basically send a connection and asking to evaluate them for a potential investor.
Wow. And what's that called?
That's called 90 Upsilon Sigma. So is the URL is 90.us.
Got it.
90
Okay.
Upsilon Sigma. Yeah.
Very cool. What's like one of the biggest failures you've experienced that you like feel like is you learned from a lot? I'm sure there's a lot along the way in an entrepreneurship, but what's one of the bigger ones? And if you don't mind sharing like the story and kind of how you came out different.
Yeah. With the first company, so I'm a person that came from operations. I love data, and so and programming, all that stuff. So we started developing our solution, our natural language processing algorithm, the software as a service, and the approach was something that is an error. So you can be a product entrepreneur or a business entrepreneur. And I was a product entrepreneur. I wanted to build the best product ever, right? And go and I thought if I build the best product ever, then the money will come in, right? So it will arrive at some point. That was a huge mistake. So we started the company. We were the first ones with actually NLP in 3 languages: English, Portuguese, and Spanish. Everything was looking great for us. And another competitor entered the market like a year later, and they focus on business, so sales. So after the second year, we have like 50 clients. They had 3,000, right?
Wow.
And they started growing and growing and growing. And for us was, the platform was so complex that it was more than the market was asking. We were creating a platform from us and not for the clients. That was a huge mistake. That other company was sold in $500 million, and our company was sold for way less than that, way less. And it was 100% our mistake. It's not like something that you can say, the market was not in the right moment, whatever. We failed. There was a big failure that cost us like some $100 million.
Yeah, no, that's such an interesting story. So, I mean, along with that, like, what would be your biggest piece of advice? In all the things that you learned to younger Catholic entrepreneurs, who are maybe in college, just out of college, and want to dive into entrepreneurship, starting a business or building a product. What's your biggest piece of advice to that person?
First of all, it's very important that you understand from the beginning how you're going to make money, right? And build a P&L, a business plan that counts everything. Let's say if you're working for free, actually that's not zero in your P&L. It's your salary from a person in your position that you got to put in the P&L because you are kind of donating that money. You're investing the money, the opportunity cost of working in another company. You're putting that money into your startup. If you don't do that, you will fail to understand the cost of the burn rate of your company. So that's very important. Secondly, don't spend. So be very careful with the money, right? So money normally gets in your company, your bank account, way later than expected, and leaves your bank account way earlier than expected. So that's super, super important because most of the startups that fail, they fail because they run out of money. And a startup is like a money pit, to be honest, at the beginning. And normally, my advice is learn how to. If you want to be a good entrepreneur, be like a Catholic father, poor Catholic father of a large family, right? Means that you gotta know that you're gonna live like with nothing. And just to give you an example, for like 2 years, I only ate like bread and butter for
Wow.
lunch and just like pasta with butter for dinner. And that was it. At some point, I hated pasta, right?
Hmm.
But the reality is, and it was crazy because my company was growing. It was on the newspaper, magazine, everything. But my life, it was completely opposite. I was taking a bus to go to work, and I arrived to work, and I had like a lot of employees, a very fantastic company, and it's hard to keep separated your economy from the company economy.
Hmm.
And that's super, super important. You don't need an office, to be honest, today. Nobody cares about your office. No client is going to visit your office. So, work from home, from your father's house, whatever you want. So be very careful with that. And the other thing is, done. This is my recommendation. Is just, some people may not agree with this. I wouldn't go for all the kind of process of being an entrepreneur, right? Starting go with the startup competitions, but then go into, raise capital, and then create the best pitch PowerPoint. Build a good business. Everybody wants to be with someone that has a good business. So if you have a good business, you will find money. There is a ton of money out there. There is no lack of money. What is lack of good businesses. So if
Hmm.
you can, and of course, at some point, you know, you can have nothing and raise $5 million in capital. That is not going to make you rich. The $5 million is from the company. They are not giving the money to you so you can spend it in your house, right? So investment means nothing. It means actually that you are before that you own 100% of the company. Now you own less than that. So my focus would be ideally bootstrapping against raising capital. If you really need the capital because of the type of business, that's totally normal, then fine. But the important thing is having a good and robust business, and not if you need to convince people with a great presentation, is because you have nothing basically. Uh, and it could happen. You can play guitar, and you can say, look what happened with Jimi Hendrix, the most famous guitar player in the world. Yeah, that doesn't mean that you're gonna grab a guitar and you're gonna be Jimi Hendrix, right? So go for the secure, right? Create a good business. Everybody loves that.
Definitely. No, I think that's great advice. Um, how do you balance like you being a father, being a husband, and doing all that you do? What do you find helps navigate all that?
Uh, First of all, of course, I have a wife that is it's fantastic, right? So that's super super important, super important. Um, I normally tell my wife is I wouldn't achieve 1% if it wasn't for her. She was very supportive all the time. Uh, it's important when you're starting up a company. This is a project from the family. It's not your project. If you if you don't talk with your family about what it means in terms of everything, the time you need to invest in the company and everything, uh, it will end up in a really bad manner. So I talked with my wife about it, and she was very supportive. about starting up my first company. I had no money, so it was like a kind of risk, and she was very supportive, and that's a big part. Um, then in the daily base, my wife is homeschooling the kids, so she's in care of that. That's fantastic as well, and so that's that big part. She leads a lot of the things that are not work. She leads all that part. She's the leader. She makes the decisions, everything. And I'm focused mostly on the businesses. And of course, we talk all the time about the businesses, what we have, what not. She knows exactly. She was working in one of my companies for a time, so she learned how everything is, it works. In case something happened to me, she can be prepared. Nobody has the life secure forever, and so you got to think about that as well. And then, in a daily basis, the only way you can uh, stretch your day is sleeping less. That's a reality. So what I do is normally I go to sleep early. So I take the girls to sleep, and then I go to sleep early. So probably at 10 p.m. I'm sleeping already. So that gives me 7 hours of sleeping until 5 a.m. 5 a.m. is very early. I have a lot of hours in a day, so I can basically I start up in the morning, mental prayer, and we have all the plan that you got to do every day with the prayers and everything. At night, a lot of those things that we pray, we do it in family. So those are like kind of get-togethers that we do, like the rosary every day. So that helps a lot. That we can share those times, and basically that is like just um, working more hours. There's no good formula for that. And I working from home. That's fantastic as well.
Definitely. Yeah. What do you think, like, from a Catholic perspective, I guess, with the future of AI and maybe how the church and AI might like interplay in the future? Any thoughts that you've had?
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting. So AI is basically is conditional processes, right? It's if this and that, but in a huge scale, right? That's not intelligence. So intelligence requires consciousness. And to be honest, consciousness was not created. I know a lot of people in Harvard that were working on artificial consciousness, right? But they had nothing. And they had nothing because, of course, consciousness is not matter. The consciousness is something material. So if you're going to use the scientific method to understand something, it's observation. Cannot observe consciousness. So you don't know I know, but people don't know where it comes from, and they believe they can just replicate that. Um, Definitely, we need a God to have consciousness first. Um, so I think it's gonna help in a lot of things like automation. I believe that the human beings are fantastic creating, are fantastic facing new problems, and I think that's what we have to focus on. I see every day that I work with people that we work with AI basically, and I don't see anybody that is going to lose their job because of this, right? Um, so the reality is you need that consciousness, right? That understand things and understand when something is wrong. And I go to them like even OpenAI, whatever, it has a percentage of error. But if you're delivering something, let's say you are using AI for an surgery, if the error is 5%, it's a lot, right? So you're putting people in life risk. So that's a big problem. So I think humans are good on that, and computers are good at repeating things. Are bureaucrat, completely bureaucrat. It's like, let's do this, we repeat it, we do it. And humans are horrible at that. If you repeat something several times, we fail because it becomes transparent for you. It's like when you're driving home from work, you're not thinking like push the brake or
Mm-hmm.
turn left. You arrive to your house, you don't even remember what you did while you were driving. You was just thinking about something else. So you were not kind of conscious of that. When you're repeating something, you became unconscious of that. And that's a problem.
Definitely. I think that's a really good, unique perspective that to bring to it. 'Cause I know there's so many conversations around AI right now, and I think that's important to differentiate that. So thank you for that. For all the listeners, where can they find you? Where can they find information about your businesses if they want to connect with you online?
Yeah, I'm in LinkedIn, Juan Damia. You will find me easy, or in Twitter at Juan Damia, and that's it.
Awesome. Well, cool. Juan, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been just a pleasure to chat with you and learn from you. I'll link all that in the show notes for all the listeners. Thanks, Juan. And just, yeah, have a blessed year, have a blessed day, and just best of luck with all your future endeavors.
Okay, thank you very much for the interview, and I hope it is at least 10% of as good as it was the interview with the Tridentium beer. It's not easy to match that, right? Talking about beer is way better than talking about algorithms, right?
No, I love it. Like, this has been one of the most unique conversations I've had. So I really appreciate like just the perspective you bring. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, God bless, buddy.
God bless.
Ciao, ciao.